Hi, welcome to Nomad Boatbuilding. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Mark Rudder, and here in Victoria, BC, I build small boats and do custom fine woodworking. Now, we have a new project. This is going to be an international 2.4 meter sailboat. Now, what the hell is that? Well, if you think about the America's Cup boats, at one point someone said, those are cool, let's make a small one. And they came up with something called the Mini 12s, Mini 12 meter. So they're like a miniaturized version of a full-size keel boat. Well, that idea took on quite nicely, and somebody said, let's make a racing class out of this, and they eventually developed this particular class called the 2.4 meter. This is a development or construction class, and what that means is they've come up with a very basic set of parameters into which you've got to stuff a boat. Now, there's a mathematical equation that you need to adhere to make one of these boats fit into that class.
And that equation is very simply this. The corrected length of the hull, see rule delta 0.6.3, plus twice the midship girth difference, see rule delta 0.6.4, plus the square root of the total rated area of the mainsail and jib combined, minus the average freeboard height, see rule delta 0.6.5, divided by 2.37 shall be equal to or less than 2.4 meters. Yeah, easy peasy, right?
Now, if you can adhere to that equation, pretty much anything goes. There are some rules, there are a few construction stipulations, but for the most part, it's kind of a blank slate, and that's what's kind of cool about it. There is a certain homogeny that has developed around this particular style of boat. There's one model called a Norlin, and it has become so popular, it's almost what we would call a one design class, meaning everybody is sailing that specific one design. They're all in the same boat, so that it comes down to the skill of the sailor that is the really important thing, and not so much the qualities of the boat itself. So the 2.4 meter class is a little bit different. It allows you to sort of tweak your design so that you can try and beat the next guy. I've got this set of plans drawn up by Hasse Malmsten in Scandinavia, and they're a nice looking set of plans. However, there's some really key things here that are troubling for me as a builder. There is no construction drawings whatsoever. I basically have a sail plan, I've got a profile drawing with some lines on it, and I've got some full-size station mold templates. So that's all well and good, but it doesn't tell me how to put the boat together. So from my perspective, this is going to be the real challenge, figuring out how I'm going to build this. And it's not just so simple as, okay, well, I think I'll do it this way, that way, and the other way. I've got to really adhere to some very close parameters, and weight is a big one. I've got to get this hull to a very specific weight, and that means I got to be very careful about how I build the hull, and that is going to be challenging for me. Let's take a quick look at these drawings. First of all, I've got a sail plan here. That doesn't give me a whole lot for me to work with. It gives some basic dimensions for the sails themselves. A sailmaker would make use of those, of course. But what it does give me is it gives me a position for my mast. And there's sort of a critical dimension here in terms of where that mast needs to land in reference to the shear of the boat, and that's to fit the class rules. Basically, there's going to be a person who comes along, takes my finished boat, and measures it in a bunch of spots to make sure that it fits within the class rules. So I've got this lines drawing here, and it's fairly incomplete. It's only got a profile drawing. It gives me a bunch of dimensions here that I can make use of. Helps me to locate where the keel needs to go. It tells me the spacing of my stations and such. And it's got my critical dimensions for where the measuring points need to be. I don't have a bird's eye view or plan view. The drawing here has got some buttock lines on it, but because there's no plan view, there's no water lines on it. And I got no diagonals on it to help describe the shape as well. Most concerning is the area back here at the tuck. Now, that is a very convoluted little area, and I can tell by looking at the buttock lines that things change very, very fast there, and that is going to be the biggest challenge for me as a builder, trying to figure out how to plank this boat around that tuck. Now, I've been given some full-size drawings of the rudder, which is great. I've got cross-sections of it. I've got a profile of it. What I don't have, though, is any information whatsoever about how to attach this to the boat. There's nothing indicating where my rudder post should be, nothing to indicate exactly how I might put this together, whether it should be made out of solid wood or a foam core with fiberglass over it or anything like that. I've got a nice full-size drawing of the keel. Again, I don't have any construction details. It's up to me as to how I want to build it. However, the one key thing here is that this has to be a hollow keel because we're supposed to fill it with lead pigs that are removable. So how I'm going to construct this, I don't know. I could be making it out of steel, I could be making it out of wood, I could be making it out of fiberglass. The only key thing is it's got to be hollow, it's got to meet these dimensions. So the most important drawings here are the body plan or stations. Now what that means is these are cross sections through the boat. And so these are giving me basically the shapes of all of my molds. Now these are drawn to the outside of the skin, which means that I've got to figure out how much I need to reduce these in order to make the actual molds. And that's easy enough as soon as I figure out how thick my planking needs to be. The critical thing here, though, is this gives me no indication about how to create a keel structure or a shear structure. So I might be having to notch these molds out to make way for that keel structure, and I don't know what that's going to be yet because we haven't really designed the construction process of this boat. I can work from a set of lines, and when I'm building a traditional boat, I can figure out all the sort of elements that go into it in terms of structure, but I don't ever have to try and adhere to this very strict, narrow weight requirement. And now that's what's going to be really tough here. I've also got this weight calculation. And basically, I've got a hull with a surface area of about 53.8 square feet. And I'm going to be mixing and matching metric and imperial here. These are all done in metric. I'll sort of jump back and forth. But basically, I need to get this hull material down to an average of 334 grams per square foot. Now, what exactly that is in terms of a physical thing, I don't know yet. We're going to have to figure that out. And to do that, we're going to be making some test panels later. How we're going to build this, I really don't know. We have a couple options. So a popular method is strip building it, and that would be fine. So we're using cedar strips, glassed inside and out, and that can produce the boat well enough. Strip building's not really my thing, but I'm willing to do it for this particular project. And the other option is cold molding, and that's what really interests me more. And with cold molding, we're basically taking a couple layers of material and we're crisscrossing them. We're basically creating a piece of plywood that's a boat shape using smaller pieces of wood. Typically, cold molding would be done in 3 layers, but you can do it in 2. We would call it double diagonal in that case. And so I'm thinking double diagonal is the way we'll probably go. But we're going to do a bunch of test samples and see what kind of configurations we come up with. I think I'll start with building a model and playing around with that, because I really want to try and explore how to deal with this tuck over here. This is going to be a real tricky one. So I'm going to take the body plan, print it out at scale, and cut those stations out as little molds, and we'll do a little planked model. So instead of a solid half hull model like I would normally do, because I don't have water lines to work from, I've only got buttock lines, and I don't have any information about how far apart those buttock lines even are, I'm kind of left with not a lot of options in terms of quickly producing a model without playing around with trying to calculate out where all these buttock lines are. Okay, I'm going to be stepping way outside my comfort zone on this one, folks, and this is going to be a whole new area of exploration for me. I've never built a cold molded boat. I've never worked on something with this kind of an extreme shape to it, and I've got about 1,000,001 questions that I need to find answers for. So you're going to come along with me. You're going to watch as I make mistakes, as I get frustrated, as I have small victories, and I hope you enjoy that process. So we're going to try and keep these videos moving along faster so that they come out a little more frequently. We want to keep pace with the construction of this. So don't forget to subscribe, like, ring that bell so you know when the next video is out. And most importantly, if you can join me over on Patreon, I really appreciate it. While I do have a client who's paying for this boat, it's only the people on Patreon who are helping to cover the cost of making these videos, and I do take an awful lot of time to do it. I can really use your help in that process, and those of you who are on Patreon, thank you ever so much for your generosity, as always. I really appreciate that. So, ciao for now, folks. I will see you later.